Hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is an advocate for autism awareness. We're going to deep dive into all things autism and awareness, obviously. His name is Kadin McElwain. Welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me, Christian.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. It's interesting. In the 4 years that I've done the show, I don't think I've ever discussed this topic, which is interesting. A lot of my friends have autism. I think I might have had someone reach out years ago, and I prepared a whole show, and then they backed out last minute. Well, they didn't even do that; they just no showed. Like, oh. So it's exciting to finally be able to kind of deep dive into this and just explore it as a topic. So we'll start at the beginning. You were diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. So I know you've probably been asked this question like a million times, but I feel like with my show, I like to kind of paint the picture over the course of a timeline and sort of build from there. So, how did it kind of affect you in your childhood years? Like, let's start there.
Hmm. I would say I mainly had problems with the social stuff, understanding facial expressions, taking things literally, that kind of thing. And I will say, around that time when I was diagnosed, it was coincidentally right after I got the smallpox vaccination. Of course, it didn't cause that. I just think it's funny because that conspiracy theory is always floating around and is still today. You'd think it'd be eliminated by now in today's cancel culture, inclusive, misinformation combating society, but no, it's still very much alive. But I digress. Elementary school, things were fine. I had services to help with social stuff, and I was, quite frankly, pretty popular with my peers around that time because, one, they didn't see me as any different from anyone else. And I'm pretty sure the teacher informed the class that I was on the spectrum, so they knew, hey, he's a bit different from us. We should treat him with some kindness. But middle school and high school, as is common with everyone, that was a nightmare of bullying and teasing and all that. And in middle school, actually, my IEP services, individualized education plan, those were cut off completely, which is actually illegal here in the States. I asked that once, but I would say I was one of the lucky ones. I was diagnosed early, so I was able to get the resources I needed, and I was more high functioning, which basically means I have talents in certain things, and incredible intelligence and incredible concentration. I just need help with the social stuff and that kind of thing. Uh, but my parents, and I love them for this, they reached out to every single autism organization and the state senator in the state that the middle school was in, Tennessee, to make sure that that was taken care of quickly because they knew that I needed those services.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy when you look at it from, I suppose, the organizational perspective. I mean, I remember when I was at school, looking back, there were definitely friends that had autism, but you just didn't necessarily know. Either it hadn't been diagnosed, or maybe it wasn't being treated with the level of seriousness it needs to be. I mean, because this is the thing. When and I know we'll sort of break down into it in a second, but like it is a spectrum, and there's varying degrees, and I think the thing that I always used to find growing up that was interesting is people would be like, if it was someone with acute autism, it'd be like, oh, but like, you don't show any signs, like any obvious things, you know? And then, like, I remember my best friend growing up as a kid, like, he was more, I suppose like the bigger signs were things like having a fit, or maybe, like, I'll tell a quick story. Like, I didn't notice it for the most part when we were kids because we were kids. Like, you don't pick up on things unless there's maybe a response that isn't what you're used to, I guess. Maybe that's kind of the tell, like where someone would act one way in a situation, your friend acts in a different way, and you're like, oh, okay. And as a kid, you just, a lot of the time, I think you just kind of ignore these things, like you just carry on. It's like, oh, that's weird, but then you carry on, right? But I
Okay.
remember the tell for me was we were big wrestling fans. and we were watching a video of some match, and it was like a favorite tape of his. Like he really, so VHS to for all the younger viewers, that's what that is. That's how old I am. So we're watching that and finished the tape, and then basically it got like stuck in the player or something. Because that's what used to happen back in the day. Sometimes it get jammed and you couldn't get it out. Now, normally that wouldn't be a big deal. Like, we'll figure this out. But he was getting increasingly more upset and anxious about it. And I remember my mum at the time just kind of quietly explained to me, like, listen, I'm going to have to take this out and I'm probably going to have to, like, destroy this, like the machine to do it. And like, I was like, okay. I didn't quite understand fully at the time, but basically his anxiety was tied to that because it was like a favorite thing of his. And I suppose the usual response might be like, you'd still be upset, but maybe you wouldn't like, have like a big reaction like he was having. And at the time, I didn't really come to appreciate the magnitude of that. But as I got older and as we became better friends and I met other friends who had autism, I started to understand that often what the case is you have to be like patient and understanding, empathetic, crucially, but also how can I put this? Your friend will explain to you like where maybe the what they struggle with. So you mentioned at the top of this, I struggle with social skills, right? I think that's a pretty common one with autism. One what I've noticed over the years is there'll be like little things like, okay, maybe I don't pick up on a vibe in a room, or I don't pick up on this person being upset where other people would, stuff like that. And depending on where you are on the spectrum, will kind of reflect how you deal with these things, how you handle these things, and so on and so forth. So I would say, like in this day and age now, we're a lot more, you know, up to date with these things. We're going to have a better understanding of these things, but back then we didn't. Can you speak to any of that? Like, I mean, obviously you grew up in, so you're a lot younger than me, so you would have grown up in sort of like the late 2000s, early 2010s. That would have been like when you were at high school, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So can you speak to that to like as of today? Like, would you say people's understanding of autism is better now than it used to be?
Hmm. In a way, I think we're becoming more inclusive in society, but we still don't fully understand it because we aren't researching it enough. And even worse, as far as I'm concerned, teachers aren't telling people in middle school and high school that such person is on the spectrum. Please treat them with kindness. And I mainly blame the parents because during COVID, parents could hear everything that was being taught. And if the teacher said, hey, such and such is on the spectrum, please treat him with kindness. He may be different from you, but he still might be cool. Well, the parent or some conservative Christian 40-year-old suburban mom might have walked in, disrupted the Zoom meeting, ruined his child's success, and been like, nope, you're getting on the road. I don't want my little princess learning about autism. It's a Satan worshiping thing. And it's honestly sad to see it truly is. So schools have come to having to hide things from parents, at least here in the States. I don't know about over there in Britain, but
Well,
parental,
in to be clear, in religious schools or just state schools?
all schools in general, parents are combating with schools about curriculum involving inclusion and LGBTQ stuff. And I think they have some points, at least in elementary school, but they said at least let the schools inform the class if such student has autism or ADHD or Down syndrome. Because then I think if their understanding is better, the bullying rates will be way lower. It truly will.
I say this about bullying because that's something I share in common with you. I think most people probably have been bullied at some point in their life. Um, you can educate people as much as you want. children as much as you want. Bullying is like one of those things that just kind of happens. And I'm not saying it's okay. I think we have to do our best to prevent it, but it does just happen. You know, like it's look at society now. Like we're pushing towards a place where we're trying to get more inclusive and you know like supportive of each other, and you know things like different genders, different understandings of social norms, so on and so forth. My point being that like we're trying to get to a place where it's like, hey, you can be whatever you want to be, man. As long as you're not hurting anybody, be what you want to be. That's the ideal. That's the goal, if you like. But obviously, it takes time to get somewhere like that, and we're nowhere close. We're trying, but we're nowhere there. So when it comes to school, um, you know, you've got a mixed bag of people. You've got people that are being raised with that mentality. You've got people that are raised with like a more old fashioned mentality. I mean, a lot of it comes down to your upbringing, who your parents, who are the people raising you? What's
Oh,
your
exactly.
home life like? You know what I mean? Like when I think about the
Yeah.
people that used to bully me, they were getting bullied at home. One person in particular, I remember like his dad bullied him. And I remember one time him telling me a story of how his dad was he went to a bar with his dad one time, and a guy came up to his dad who he used to go to school with and turned around and was kind of half joking, but was like, hey, you used to bully me in school. And it was like apparently like a really awkward, tense moment where his dad tried to like play it off like, ah, oh, yeah, whatever, ha ha ha. But obviously his son is seeing this. And the crazy thing about this is I remember him telling me this story, and I remember him thinking, okay, so you're conscientious enough that you understand that your dad bullied people and that that's wrong, but then you're doing it, but you don't see it as bullying. You see it as he used to put it, banter. That was a lot. Used to get, you know, or maybe in the US, jokes. Oh, that's a joke. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know what the slang would be. I'm too old. But that you know, it would get explained away as, oh, it's just a laugh. Don't worry about it. But that's the problem, isn't it? Like with bullying, you're targeting people either based on the fact that they're different or because you know, as I said, like you got maybe a bad home life, so this is your way of you know externalizing that, you know, taking it out on someone else, like whatever. Like there's a million reasons that people bully, but it's difficult to prevent that. And obviously, being someone that's in a position where immediately you're different, right? You're relying heavily on the system. Like you said something interesting earlier that I found I picked up on. You said in elementary school, when the teachers were introducing you to the class, they were like, "Oh, so Caden's a little bit different. You know, he's different." Da, 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 da. Choice of words is key in these situations. By immediately saying this person is different, you've already like isolated them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm not a wordsmith. I don't know a better way to like phrase something like that or explain it to a bunch of children. But just saying something like that, do you know what I'm saying? It already kind of puts you in a
Oh,
corner in a sense, you know?
yeah, that makes sense. So I think their intentions were good. Now that you
Mm,
mentioned that,
hmm
there just needs to be a way to word it so 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds or whoever can understand it. And I absolutely agree. I believe everything starts at the home. If the parents bully the child or they worship negative influences like Andrew Tate, who goes on this platform and misogynizes women out the wazoo, Alex Jones, who spreads negative conspiracy theories and causes victims of sensitive events to get harassed to oblivion, resulting in a lawsuit, or people like Nikocado Avacado, who fills his face with food and is close to death's doorstep, then most likely the child's going to go out and spread negativity and bullying and all of that, and the results will either be very negative for them or very negative for the victim, or in the worst case, both. College has been better for me. I'm a sophomore going on a junior. I just finished my sophomore year, actually, and I still get some bullying, but not as much as I
In
used
college?
to in high school. Yeah, a little bit, but mainly from a frats. Though I actually have a funny story. One time I was out on the town trying to get survey responses for a class project I was working on. It was for my technical writing class. My goal was 50 responses, and I was determined to get them. I was at like 32 or something back then, and I was going to all the frats to get some responses. And this one guy chewed me out and teased me for crossing a bunch of rats for it. I mean, he was drunk, to be fair. Frats are known for being drinking places and crime places, of course, so you can expect that. But I didn't let it hurt me. That's mainly what I've been working on this year. Not being ashamed of who I am and not letting things get to me. Because if people are going to be negative, you shouldn't give them the time of day. You truly shouldn't.
Yeah, it's difficult. And it was disappointing hearing that behavior as well. Like, as soon as you said it, I was like, bullying at university, at college, what? Like, because at this point you're like anywhere from 18 to 21. Okay, yeah, you're not like a adult yet, but still, like, it's bullying feels like something that, I mean, to be fair, I've seen it in workplaces. I mean, it's not like you get into the adult world and it completely disappears, but at least in those formative years, you learn to stand up for yourself. You learn to like get through it and whatever, and hopefully. But you don't
Yeah.
expect to see it because obviously, when you're at school and there's a fight, everyone's like, fight, 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 yeah, like they're loving it, right? But then you become an adult, and like people see a fight, and everyone's just like, oh, and like looking in disgust, and there's some people trying to break it up. Maybe some people are calling law enforcement. Like the point is, it's not socially acceptable to be like that. I mean, but then here's the other element to that. Now we live in this, you know, technology age where people just pull their phone out. So it's like you get two people fighting or arguing. It's like first person's response is to just take your phone out and start recording it. Oh, I'll put this on TikTok. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. A lot of my favorite rappers have died due to a shooting. King Von, PNB Rock, if you know who any of those people are, I mean, you're a bit older, so of course, it's
What are
from
we trying to say?
my generation, the King Vons and the PNBs and the XXX
Right.
Tentacions.
Okay.
People's first instinct were to pull out an iPhone and record the crime scene, thinking it's cool and
Mm.
great. Oh, I witnessed a crime. I witnessed one of my favorite rappers died. I witnessed Takeoff die. You let me pull out my iPhone and record the body. No, no. That's even worse than bullying. It truly is. Instead, you use call the authorities, call medical person. Now, I think for some of these cases, if people were quick enough to do that, maybe some of these rappers would still be alive.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've noticed a lot with social media and particularly TikTok is that there's a lot of content on there that kind of eggs on that kind of behavior. There's like a disconnect that is really, really worrying. I mean, when I look at my life and what I do, I try to do motivational stuff. I try to do like live streams and podcasts that hopefully when people listen to them or engage with them, they walk away feeling inspired, motivated, positive, something like that, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of content out there that is not that. It's all about how many followers you have, how many likes you have, like one-upmanship they would call it. Like what's the most outrageous thing I can do? What's the most controversial thing I can do? To speak to what you just said, like, oh, I've just filmed this famous rapper passing away. Oh my god! And they'll probably get a lot of people give them like clout for that, and like, oh yeah, that's so sick. But then the wider majority, hopefully, will be like, that's sick, that's awful, that's terrible. But this is the thing. There's this battle in society right now where it's just social media age. Like, I grew up with social media, but not it hadn't taken over the world just yet. It was like a novelty, you know. Or we still, you might check your phone here and there, but that was it, right?
Right.
Now it's a situation where it's you're either online or offline. If you're offline, you're escaping from the world in a sense. You know, like whenever I spend time away from my phone, I come back to like a million messages, emails, whatever, right? And it's kind of stressful. But I feel free because this is the real world, not what's on your phone. But that's the problem. Like, there's no consequences to it. Someone giving you crap in the street and it gets filmed, it gets put online. People aren't necessarily thinking about the people involved. They're just seeing content like, oh, this is great content. It's like it's people. If that happened to you in the street, you would hate that. But because it's someone else, because it's behind the screen, somehow it doesn't affect you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's truly sad to see, and I mainly blame my generation, as I like to call them, the TikTok generation. All they do is whine and complain and moan and groan about how such and such event inconveniences them, or how you should boycott such and such thing due to them supporting a cause that hurts your feelings. When instead they should be having empathy for the victims. And one thing that's happening here in the state, it's that I personally find absurd, is college students going out on campus and acting like wild animals because they're trying to advocate for free Palestine, free Hamas, free this and that, which I respect them for trying to advocate for a cause they like. I truly do. There's just a better way to put it that doesn't involve damaging property
Yeah.
or assaulting people. That's my main problem.
Well, I'll say this much. I mean, colleges are kind of made for that since the dawn of time. Like it's the sort of place where you got the next generations coming through who are going to run the country one day, and there's going to be advocates. You're an advocate yourself. There's going to be people who stand up and fight for things. And I'm not condoning violence or destroying things, but at the same time, like it's nothing new. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it's it's just I think now you're seeing it more reported on because we live in an age where instantly things get posted online as they're happening at all times. So you're seeing it more and more and more and more and more. To speak to your point before about it's I blame my generation, da, 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 da. Like I'm a bit more sympathetic to that. I think every generation has its own problems and issues. I blame the media, and that makes me sound like a fucking sucker mom, like just a weird. It's like an old person. Like I am an old person, but I do because that's where it comes from. If you look at what advertisers do, companies, uh, the media outlets, etc., they push that. They encourage that kind of behavior, and that's why you see it like again and again and again. I mean, yeah, to an extent, different generations are going to do their own things. Like back when I was growing up, that sounds so weird to say. MySpace was our thing. MySpace was it still exists, I think, but back in the day, it was like the social media platform for the millennials. And basically, it was pretty straightforward. You had like a page, and you edited it to reflect you, like it was a representation of you. So you'd have like your own song or your 5 favorite songs that would play as soon as someone came on your page. There would be different things embedded on the page that would reflect different parts of your personality. There used to be funny things like your top 5 friends, and like you get into arguments about that because people would be like, "Why am I not in your top 5?" Like just silly stuff like that. But the point is, that was our thing, and we had silly trends back then. Things like if I comment on your photo, you comment on mine. Pick for pick, we used to call it, like just like little silly stuff like that. Point is, you would make up your own trends. You would look at what's come before and make new stuff out of that, and that's, I think, pretty harmless. The problem with social media now is when the scrolling system was invented, I think it was in the late 2000s. That was a Facebook invention. That is what's caused the bigger problem because now you're just locked in. Think about the last time you were on your phone, right? And maybe you were on TikTok and you just scrolling, 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 scrolling. And then before you know it, an hour has passed. And you can't remember that. What were you doing in that hour? Oh, I was just looking at videos for an hour. But it just happens because that's what it's designed to do. And interestingly, if you're a content creator on one of these apps and you're just making content and you share a link to somewhere else, the app will punish you for doing that because it doesn't want you to leave. They don't want you to leave. They want you to stay on that app and just keep scrolling. That's why you see things like hashtag brain rot. That's a thing. Like it's encouraged by the apps. So like I don't really like blame people. I blame the apps and the media for like how they encourage this kind of behavior. But you're
Yeah,
part of that generation, so you speak to that a little bit more.
yeah, I absolutely blame apps too. Ooh, like you said, MySpace was simple. It used to be fun, quite frankly. Now it's toxic for cyberbullying. People are disconnecting from their families, not focusing on bigger issues in the world, like my cause, helping those with autism and passing legislation to actually help people with special needs. They're focused on who's having the best beef right now, like the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef. Who's having the coolest social media trend right now, or funniest meme, like Skibbity Toilet, or and it's spreading to little kids too. Ooh,
Let's let's talk about that for a second. You brought up the Kendrick Lamar versus Drake beef. I think this is interesting because what we're seeing, it's not the first time that two rappers have gone at each other, right? Obviously,
right.
the last one was probably the most notable one was Eminem and Machine Gun Kelly. But if you're a young teenager witnessing that, what does it teach you? You can defeat your enemies in a rap battle by completely destroying them and tearing apart their personality and their mistakes and everything. And that's how you overcome your enemies, right? That's how you
Right.
put people in their place, so to speak. And maybe to an extent, there's something positive in that, like sometimes it is good to put people in their place if they're being, rude or obnoxious or telling lies or exaggerating the truth or whatever the case may be. Sometimes, or maybe their ego is just so inflated that they need to be taken down a step or two. I can understand that. I get where that comes from. However, to speak to your point about people's fascination with these things, being obsessed with these things, like that's become a thing. Like, think about what we're saying here. Everyone is obsessed with two rappers tearing each other apart in songs. Why? Because it's funny?
I I don't know. As for music fans, Kendrick
Sure.
Lamar and
Okay.
Drake are two of the biggest rappers in the world, so they always talk about Big Free and all that. But that's a distraction from the issues that need to be addressed. All these
Sure.
influencers are distractions.
Mm.
Nikocado Avacado is a really good example. Before this so, I was watching a video by him. Over 100K views in the first hour were one of his mukbangs got of him shoving his face full of food, weighing 353 pounds, and people saying, "Oh, he's gonna die. He's gonna die. He's gaining weight." Be concerned about his weight. Send him messages. Use his story as a learning experience to not become um someone who stuffs his face full of food for money, which is another thing I blame about people's fascination with followers. The money, the monetization deals on content. It's absurd to me.
I totally agree with you. I think Nikocado Avocado is a really good example because it's like you're watching a man die. Now think about that for a second. You're encouraging a man to keep abusing his body. Sometimes when I look in, I've seen some of those videos and I've seen like the comment sections, and there's people like trying to push him and be like, "Hey," like positively. I mean, like, "Hey, when's the glow up happening? When are you gonna like drop the weight and get healthy and get in a good shape again?" You know, like there's some people that really want it because they see the damage that's happening. But I don't know that there's enough of those voices because the greater majority is like wanting the downfall, and it's like if you keep pushing the man, it's going to happen. And then what? And then suddenly it's regret. Suddenly it's, oh, maybe if we'd have been positive, maybe if we'd have done this, da, 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 da. But then it's too late.
Hmm,
I, I
exactly.
quite frankly, I think it's sick that people think that way, that they egg on people, egg on their downfall. Like, look, I don't want to sound like a martyr or whatever, but like, I'm more into the idea of pushing people in a positive way, encouraging people to chase their dreams, encouraging people to be the best that they can be, encouraging people and giving people hope. A lot of this negative content that you see online, like, there's no hope in it. Why are people so depressed? Because they're not working on themselves. They're not working towards goals. They're just seeing the society collapsing and destructing inward and just giving up. But you can't give up. You have to work towards trying to improve society, even if it's on the smallest scale possible. Try anyway. You're an advocate for autism awareness. You're trying to spread awareness about autism, educate people, make them understand why they need to know about this, why it's useful to know more about autism, how it can help people. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your work with autism awareness. What have you done so far to spread awareness? You mentioned before you've put out flyers and stuff like that, but like what's some of the key things you've done, say, in the last year?
Hmm. I'll talk about how I began my advocacy journey. Uh, it all began with a class project I did for my freshman year of college. The assignment was to think of a way to help the community and act upon it. This was a group project, so my group and I set up a GoFundMe for Autism Society of America. We ended up raising over $1,000 for it, and we won $300 to use in the school cafe as part of a contest the school was having for the group projects. But as typical of my generation, my group didn't really take it seriously enough. They only wanted to do the assignment to get the grade and the prize money to use to feed their faces full of coffee and sweets and everything else. So I thought, okay, no one else is taking it seriously. I might as well be an advocate for change and help these kids. So that group project led to all kinds of opportunities for me. Within the last year, I've appeared on a bunch of different platforms like this one to tell my story and spread the cause. About over 30, actually, with more to come this year. I counted recently. I've planned several fundraisers for one of my favorite organizations since in my community, Lake County Special Needs Birthday Club, which is this organization that holds very big and elaborate birthday parties for those with special needs in the community,
Oh,
from
wow.
infant to elderly, which I deeply admire. I really do. I've even used my birthday to do one of those fundraisers, which we ended up raising over $150 for. He planned a Christmas drive, a Christmas toy drive for families who are struggling and have special needs children. We helped four families have the perfect Christmas in the community. 9 different businesses pitched in, which I thought was really awesome. And this year, the birthday fundraiser is coming back. I'll have an exact date soon, but it'll most likely be July 9th on my birthday. I just gotta gather up some businesses. And I'm planning a voting event on June 21st for the upcoming election over at my local dairy to hopefully get the voting registration rate up in my county.
Amazing work, man. You should be really proud of yourself. I
Thank you,
think
sir.
I think that's the thing as well. It's like by putting that work in, eventually it's going to get attention, the right type of attention, and it's going to get people moving. I mean, it doesn't surprise me to hear that, like, obviously, students on your course not taking it seriously. I get it. Like, they don't, they probably don't take it seriously because they don't. It doesn't affect them, so they don't see. Do you know what I mean? Like the importance. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you have to have a condition or something to not appreciate it and not support it, but it's like, you know, people are like that sometimes. You know, they don't see the bigger picture. Like, hey, we should try and support everyone. We should support these causes because it's important, and you know, everyone has different challenges in life, and we should try to help people with those challenges. But by doing the things that you're doing, it's invoking change. It's pushing things in the right direction, and certainly talking about it really does help. I think I'd like to kind of talk about more about your personal experience and what people can learn from it. Like, what advice could you give to people who might just be receiving their diagnosis for autism right now?
I would say don't let people tell you what you're capable of or put you in a box. You are capable of so much more than what most people expect from people with autism and special needs. Just put in the work and you'll get there. And if people doubt you, don't give them the time of day.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. See, that's the interesting thing as well. Like I mentioned earlier, that a lot of my friends have autism. I was going to say have had have autism, and you know, they're some of the smartest people I know, successful people. It doesn't really. It's not something we really talk about unless like it just comes up sometimes. Like sometimes you make jokes like, "Oh, it's the autism again," like you know, like little just friendly stuff like that, but like not meant in a bad way. Um, but then other times it's like you'll notice it like when you're trying to comfort your friend and maybe there's a disconnect there and you don't know how to approach it, and that's why I think education is so important, so that you know, like, oh, if your friend has autism, this is the good way to, like, you know, approach your friend and help them. And that leads into my next question. um, for people without autism, what are the best ways you can support your friends who have autism? Like what's a good way of going about it?
Hmm. I would say for the parents, be there for your child and be an advocate for your child. My parents have continued to be an advocate for me, even when I don't deserve it at times, and I'm especially grateful for them for that. I
Yeah.
really am, because thanks to them, I'm extremely successful, appearing on podcasts to spread a cause I believe in, working for politicians, doing all this cool stuff. And as I said, I consider myself lucky because I had that early diagnosis. So I would suggest for the parents, be an advocate for a child, and early diagnosis is definitely key to success. For the friends, I would say be there for your friend and treat them with kindness. If they don't understand something you do, explain it to them in a way they'll understand it. And for the schools, mainly, and legislation passing people who are in power, I would say do your job. Don't cut off IEP services without parental consent or knowledge. That's illegal. And pass legislation to make sure people with autism and special needs get what they need and don't focus on petty things like TikTok bans and drag so bans and bills that help protect your washing machine and refrigerator.
What?
They actually passed a laundry machine refrigerator protect appliance bill in the House recently. I learned about it this week.
Mad. So on the list of priorities, it's. I'm glad we got that sorted out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't have to worry about washing machines anymore. What are the main misconceptions surrounding autism?
Hmm. The two big ones are people with autism are either Dustin Hoffman's character in Rain Man, where
Right.
they
Yeah.
have fascinations with certain things and talents in certain things and have amazing memories. It's actually a wide range of spectrums. There's the higher end, which is where I'm at, or the lower end, where these people can't walk, can't talk, and have to be taken care of for the rest of their lives. And the other huge one is autism is caused by vaccinations, which of course isn't true. That conspiracy puts people in danger, quite frankly. To me, it's mainly genetics and the food we eat.
That's interesting. Do you think it's because of things like genetically modified food, stuff like that? Something
I would say
within.
mainly the chemicals
Mm,
that companies put in there to make it last longer
right.
or to make it have a long shelf life. Those can definitely cause some health problems, and I think in a way, depending on the case, some forms of autism can be caused by food chemicals, but I think it's mainly genetic.
Yeah, I think we just need to like keep putting more money into research and just learning as much as we can, and hopefully, in the coming years and decades, we'll learn more. We'll make more kind of concrete observations where that's concerned, and we'll know what to avoid, and just hopefully get in a better place where we can understand these things better. I mean, that's always the goal, really, isn't it? Is education, um,
Absolutely.
and wanting to understand more as well. I think this is an interesting question because I've been asking this to everyone that comes on the show. I always change it according to what we're talking about. What have your experiences with autism taught you about life?
It's taught me to not be ashamed of who you are, embrace your gifts, and to not take no for an answer. And I have the last one from my parents. I have them to thank for that because they taught me don't take no for an answer, but also don't be a lazy ogre troll rat type slob living in the basement. Put in the work. Don't take no for an answer, and don't give up until you get the things you desire, which I still have. Uh, right now, I'm looking for some more summer work to do to help fill the void that I have now. I was originally supposed to work on a farm this summer, but times are extremely hard for them, so they had to eliminate some positions, including mine. But so I've been applying, getting rejection after rejection, but I saw something today that further increases my work ethic. I think it was an interview with the B movie director, and he said he got rejection letter after rejection letter. But the thing is, he just needs to get one yes, and he's good. So that's been my approach I've been taking with this job application thing. As I said, I'm working for a politician right now, but if I can find something similar to what I'm doing for him, then I think my summer will be set. I just need to get one yes and not take no for an answer.
I think certainly something within the kind of like ambassadorial sphere, maybe for autism even, would be like ideal for you because you could kind of show them the benefit of your experience and your work ethic, what you've achieved. It's clear that you've achieved and made a lot of progress and demonstrated that you can make change, and that's an important skill, it's an important life skill. And I think that would be like really useful for an organization that, is spreading awareness about autism. So if anyone's watching, give Kadin a job. So I think he'd do a great job. There you go. What's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I have ever received is to embrace my gifts. I got from my parents. They've given me a ton of advice, but I think that's the main one that's been helping me on this journey of adulthood.
I like the way you put that, the journey of adulthood. It really is a journey. Even at my age, 31, I'm every single day I'm learning. I'm probably learning more now than I ever did in my 20s or my teens. And the journey never stops. There you go.
Amen to that.
What's the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
The biggest life lesson I would say is, like I said, to have a strong work ethic. And if people are negative towards you and question your capabilities, then don't give them the time of day.
Couldn't agree more. Final question for you to round things up for today. Do you have any upcoming projects or final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Hmm. As I said, the big thing I got this year is the June 21st voting event in Perry, Ohio. So if you guys are in Perry that day, come down to Dairy Queen to support the cause and go out and vote. This election is going to be one of the most important ones yet.
Excellent. Thank you very much for appearing on the show, Kadin. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing your experiences and learning a bit more. And yeah, just massive thank you for reaching out, man.
Thanks for having me, Christian.
My pleasure. And to all the listeners of the Christian Reeve podcast, I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, be safe, be well. Make sure to leave us a review on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave us ratings, leave us reviews. I'm starting to see an increase in the views right now, and I think that might be because of the reviews and the ratings. So thank you to everyone that's done a review, a rating, comment, all that jazz. Please keep doing that. Thank you so much. Let me know what you'd like to see on the show in the future, who you'd like to see. And as always, thank you for watching.